Hello friends and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start our video with the story of how our OP solved the issue of his yard with the authorities. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Do you want a pretty lawn or for me to follow your rules? I live in a small town with various rules about the state of one's yard. My yard is rather sizable and I have a push mower. I've divided the yard into three major areas. The apple tree, a 50 by 45 foot downhill area with an old apple tree in the center and thick forest on two sides. The front, the obvious one, between the house and the road, 85 by 35 foot space and mostly flat. The north field, a very uneven area with several trees that's 50 by 100 feet with that same thick forest mentioned above across the far side. This is important for later. Now, the town likes to remind me about keeping it short and neat at the threat of a $100 fine, demanding it be cut weekly despite the weather, aside from winter. These demands were borderline harassment, constantly sending people to check on if it's been cut and how much of it was done, even manually putting letters of notice in my mailbox. I have back problems involving nerve damage that prevents me from standing too long, so getting it all in one go is difficult, so I'd split the work into several days. They didn't like this and demanded it be done in a single day or take the fine. In checking into it and renting a riding mower or paying someone else to do it, it'd still result in $100, so no matter how I handle it, I'm still out $100. So I just risked it and kept splitting the work into 2 days, and now rarely 3. The town council started sending me pictures of what needs cut and even added another 80-foot stretch of the forest to that list. Absurd. Angry at the extra workload when I was already having trouble keeping up with their demands, I made one of my own. I wanted the city to send out the city planning coordinator to show me where my property line was and what exactly was my responsibility. I was positive they were hounding me about something that wasn't even mine. He brought out maps and measurement tools and showed me a 200 by 100 foot space and marked it out. This outlined the front and the north field, including the added space. I learned after it was pointed in the pictures that I've been cutting the apple tree area for 7 years for nothing. It wasn't in the images and was outside the property line. Instead of devoting time to dealing with the hill of the apple tree, I focused more on the north field. So now the city and anyone getting off the highway gets to see a horribly overgrown plot of land with a dead tree first thing, whereas the part no one can see is neat and tidy. As for the extra 80-foot space of the forest, the property behind us has been keeping it up, and it's still 3 simple passes, but they understand as much as we do that the forest takes what the forest wants. This added space won't last long. I let this go all summer, and they only harassed me about it one more time since I started ignoring the apple tree area. We had also recently found out this wasn't all on behalf of the whole city council, but one angry member who doesn't like my landlord and thought annoying us about it would annoy him. And our next story. Never steal from a mechanic. So to start off, a little backstory. I grew up on a farm in the East Coast. Lots of hard work with no pay, and being from a less fortunate family, we never had much. Growing up this way helped me appreciate what little I had, though. Once I was 16, I bought a car with a blown motor and rebuilt it while in auto class. I love that car. While working for an auto parts store, my mother decided to move down south. Parents were divorced long ago, and since my stepmother was a total B, alcoholic, ruined my father's business, that kind of B, I decided to leave everything behind and move in with my mother a few states away a few months after turning 18. I barely had enough to get there. Once there, I helped pay the bills with my auto parts store job. For Christmas that year, Mom couldn't get me anything. We were barely getting by, so I scraped up enough to get myself a stereo for my car. A cheap one, but nice to 19-year-old me, and her a gold medal cross necklace she hung on her rearview mirror. She cried when I gave it to her and still tears up when I talk about it. We lived in a trailer park surrounded by trees in Spanish moss, hidden from the main road and a few miles away from the nearest town. We knew our neighbors well, as there were only around 8 other trailers on this lot. Nice people, apart from one that was next to us. I'll call him Mark. Mark was in the military and worked on a nearby base. He was also an MP. As such, he never cared when him or his buddies were being too loud at night, left trash everywhere and refused to clean it up, and generally was just an a-hole to everyone. He even cussed out a 90-year-old lady for asking him to clean up the beer bottles him and his friends threw into her rose garden. The whole neighborhood hated Mark and his a-hole friends. One spring, I blew a head gasket in my car, so I was in my little driveway parked next to my mom's car. Her BF's truck was parked in the front of the trailer out of the way. Anyway, late one night as I was working on my car, Mark's buddies were making their drinking rounds, walking all over the park, throwing beer bottles everywhere, peeing on cars, being a-holes. They saw me working on my car and came right over to make fun of me for being poor, not having a better car, still living with my mom at 19, everything. I tried to just ignore them since I wasn't a confrontational person. I asked them to let me by so I can get this done. To this, they just made more fun of me and left when they realized they weren't getting a reaction from me. Later on, they all went inside Mark's trailer and continued partying, so I packed up my tools and my parts and took everything inside. Ensured all doors were locked and went to bed. That morning, I woke up to all our car's doors open and ransacked. I was pissed. Missing was my stereo, my mom's gold cross, and her BF's truck stereo. It was an expensive HUD style. We called the cops, and they didn't want to do anything about it, as the Donut Patrol was talking to me saying, "This isn't worth the department's time." Something in me snapped. I politely said, "Okay, I get it. We'll be sure to keep a watch out for next time," and the cops left. I went inside and started thinking of how I was going to get even. No one will make my mom cry. So I went to Mark's door and asked him where our stuff was. He was hungover, and I woke him up at 7 a.m. He wasn't happy about it, but let it slip that he doesn't know where his friends took it to. So I had him. I told him he has 24 hours and nothing will be done. He laughed it off and slammed the door in my face. It was on. Later that night came a huge storm. Heavy rain, lots of thunder, the works. So at 1 a.m., I dressed up in some old clothes and thermals, grabbed my tools, and went out to his car. He had a nice new little Nissan, and it to me looked a little too nice. I got under it and took off everything I possibly could without being caught. I unbolted every nut, cut every wire, cut a few holes in the gas tank, sliced his tires from the inside sidewalls, took off the oil pan. I went ape crap on this poor little car. My father was a mechanic for many years, and growing up with him, I learned a lot about how to destroy a car without being noticed. Thanks to the storm, Mark never heard a thing. After a few hours of getting my revenge, I went back inside and cleaned up, tossing my clothes in the wash and going to bed happy. I was able to cause him some peril. The next morning, I wake up to the blissful sounds of him cursing and punching his car that had no chance in hell of ever working again. All those parts of his I threw into a small pond just over the fence near me on the edge of the lot. They'll never be found. He was so PO'd he broke all the glass and dented several body panels. The cops were called and they asked around. Everybody said he had anger issues and it was within reason that he'd take it out on his own car. Or his wife, who was hardly around due to him being him, but they had a kid, so I guess they were making it work somehow. The cops, being the lazy a-holes I knew them to be from the day before, didn't do a thing and chalked it up to him having issues and left. Any other revenge story, this would be it, right? I got my revenge and he has to pay. Oh, but as fate would have it, I was but a cog in his life's plan to give him what he had coming. I never planned this part, but it makes me smile every time I think back. So since he didn't have a car anymore, he had it towed off, his wife, at least I thought it was his wife. One thing that perplexed me is there was no kid in tow as usual, and her voice was different. So I got a webcam and set it up in my window, a perfect spot to see who was coming in and out and hear all the juicy bits of their lovemaking. Thing is, there were several different girls coming over when I was gone to work. Since old Mark didn't have a car now, he had to have his affairs do house calls apparently. After a little over a month, I compiled every girl, every front porch kiss goodbye into a folder and caught his wife bringing their son by when he was out one evening. I asked her to come in and showed her the clips. She was livid, LOL. She was so pissed she called her dad and ordered a U-Haul. I helped her gather anything she said was hers, including a 55-inch TV. It was 2009. Those were still very nice. The fridge, and even the washer and dryer. She gave me $100 for my time, hugged me, and thanked me over and over for letting her know just how much of an a-hole he really is. That's when I told her he did me wrong too and explained what had happened to me and my family. She was slack-jawed and called her dad again. She told me this wasn't over and she felt so bad for us having to deal with him. An hour later, she came back with her dad and he gave me another $200 and said he was very appreciative that someone did the right thing. He shook my hand, thanked me again, and I never saw him after. The most amazing thing, when Mark came home after drinking and realizing all the stuff was gone, he destroyed the trailer, kicking out walls, windows, ripped off the doors, everything. Cops were called again by the old lady neighbor and he was put in cuffs and taken away. He was never heard from again. But as I was told from the nice landlord who owned the whole lot, he was on the tab for all the damages and for rent and took him to court. They had to wait because apparently he made a fuss at the station and hit a cop. I don't know what happened after since we moved. So his life is probably still ruined and I couldn't care less. I bought Mom another cross, me another stereo, and Mom's BF-12 that wasn't as good as his old one but was still nice. I told him the full story over a bottle of tequila with his friends and had the best night I still don't remember much of. Rule 1 of being arrested: never hit the police. You'll be put into a hurt lock and charged with assaulting an officer. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.